I have an image in my mind of what that looks like versus what it really looks like. And what it really looks like is disturbing and depressing. So let me keep the fantasy in my mind. Do not show me the back of my bald head.
It's tragic.
Hair grows in all the places we don't want it to, and it's the only place where it really grows is in places I don't want it to.
Yes, hair happens. I really just can't believe I have to explain all these facts of life to you.
Well, I appreciate the guidance.
Come on, fellas, you're losing your heads.
Evidently it's new to you, but there's such a field as manscaping. Cleaning up, doing some landscaping, but manscaping, you being a man, quote unquote.
So the Bushwhacker 10,000, how is this powered?
Oh, it's electric. You plug it in, but I should have had second thoughts when I saw that it's not 110, it's 220, the sort of thing you plug your washer and dryer into.
Oh, man.
Heavy-duty cord's an inch thick. It was from China. I did read in the literature that this is so powerful. This is what they use on people who've been living on the streets for years, and on cadavers. They use it on cadavers. The presentation at the funeral.
You're on a table, I guess.
I have an obstetric table. My feet were in the stirrups. I'll go ahead and say it, totally nude. There was some sort of a power surge. It went from to...
Did somebody knock a pole down near your house?
Evidently, that's what happened. An ambulance had hit a pole. Everyone in the ambulance died, and it went head on and spun around into a school bus full of orphans. The inconvenience to me was significant. The power surge affected the lights, so the lights were going on and off at the same time. That this thing had turned into my hands like a tiger shark. I'm trying to hold on to it. And it's chopping away. With all my might, I'm trying to prevent this thing from gobbling up my pecans. I'm thinking the last thing I want is to lose my legumes. In fact, and I hesitate to put it this way, but it was a free admission to the Nutcracker is what it was.
Sounds terrible.
A lot of people think that this is fun, but it was not. It was no ball.
And extremely painful.
Well, the doctors warn you about damage to the perineum. It ain't good. Pain was exquisite. I filed a lawsuit against both the township, which has jurisdiction over the ambulance, and the local school district, and also the families of the orphans, the estates, whatever assets they may have.
How in the world would those poor kids be liable?
The driver of the school bus saw this happening, and the children saw it, the orphans saw it as well, and they were screaming, which I think had a distracting effect on the driver.
Did you see that Nick Clooney turned 90 years old recently and had a big party? Old friends from Channel 12.
Must have been a great occasion. I was slated to attend, but I had tickets to the Olympics in Paris.
Well, I'm just a little bit puzzled. I mean, given the fact that you two worked at the Cincinnati Post, you were both columnists, good friends.
All true.
I just don't know why you wouldn't.
Look, man, I know what you're trying to say. I see how you're looking at me. If I attended every event that I received an invite for, I'd never sleep.
And you shouldn't worry.
I'm not. These priorities, I'd had these tickets for a year, and I've been told I was going to appear in the opening ceremonies. That didn't turn out, but as it turned out, I'm just as glad that it didn't.
A couple years ago, we went with some neighbors to Augusta for the weekend. And I had it on my mind because I hadn't seen Nick Clooney in a long time. But he's always, I always had great admiration for him.
Oh, and he doesn't know who you are.
And it wasn't until I think we got there on like a Friday, and it wasn't until Sunday. And I think it was my wife who said, "Hey, I see Nick Clooney over at that table." So I went over to say hi, and
the security jumped up immediately.
no, it wasn't that. I mean, he's a very approachable
Yes, he is.
person, and really he was having a good time, and I think the family was there. And he was very friendly and cordial, but I really don't think he remembered who I was. He's very polite. He said, "Give me some help on this one." And I said, "Well, David Wecker and I are good friends. We had you on our show." So I look back at that show with Nick Clooney as one of the best because we talked about everything.
Are you suggesting that that appearance in 1990, whatever it was?
Actually, this show was July 22nd of 1995.
Wait, how do you know that?
I have
You have OCD is what you have.
Could be that. But I do like to log. I like to keep track. I love dates and when events happened and if they happen on the same day as some other major event.
Let's just take a look at that for a minute, Matt. Your obsession
Well,
with
I don't know.
dates.
It's important to me. It's something that...
If that's so important to you, the little events in your life that really are minutia in the scope of things. What year was it the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor? When did D-Day happen? When did the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria sail the ocean blue?
Let's go back to 1995. The Backyard BBQ, Reflux, Nick Clooney, July 22nd of 1995.
Station break? All right, go ahead if you want to. I can't have a word to say on this show. Indiana.
And the whole thing originates live. Channel 5, Cincinnati, 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 Ohio.
That you were actually singing in that particular piece from the Ruth Lyon show.
You're darn right. That was good. Why don't you guys have a singing group on here? What's the matter with you?
Well,
Where is this? What? David Wecker is here.
We do have, and I think our little backyard bar, the Garage Band, it's a two-piece orchestra.
Yes.
And and we've been told, but I don't know that this is true, it's the first live music broadcast since that program, since Ruth Lyon, the Ruth Lyon show. Now, I don't know if it's true, but we've been told that we're the first live.
We've been researching the archives.
In that case, I salute you both, and I thank you very much for keeping alive the tradition. And being, since I was around at that time, I certainly extend the hand across the generation to you two children, and bless you.
And we grasp it warmly.
Yes, I bet. Yeah, right.
Nick Clooney, David Wecker, now more than ever, along with Matt Reis. This is the Backyard BBQ, and our producer, Chuck Ingram.
Chuck and Graham.
He does a great job, and we've had so much fun here in the last hour, and now the barbecue is underway, and some other people may be calling in as well.
So you want me to get out now?
No,
is that what you're telling me?
You're here to stay.
Please hang with
us.
We must all hang together, or we most assuredly
will hang separately. Yes, absolutely. Very glad to be with you, incidentally. It's nice
we're honored
to see
to have
you. Whatever.
you.
So ease up on me here. See, I've said very nice things. Ease up on me. You're not gonna really roast me here.
Not at all.
No roast.
And I want to get this out of the way because it's true. Matt, and you and I aspire, and I don't want to fawn, or at least I want to get the fawning out of the way at the beginning.
And I like fawning. Fawning is nice.
It is nice, but then it gets kind of syrupy, and then the listeners have to get out the Ipecac, and then you know what happens.
But think of the Ipecac salesman.
Well, right. And I do, and Matt, you do have some interest in and I think we're talking to for a sponsor, major sponsor would be Syrup of Ipecac. But at any rate, you know, what we aspire to do here with our little tiny backyard barbecue is to somehow, and it probably will never happen.
It's getting tinier by the month.
It is. It's to become like some little like a tile in the mosaic of Cincinnati broadcast history. And this guy is that. I mean, with your Paul Dixons and your Ruth Lyons, and people still talk about the changes in radio and television. It was all live, and the rules were being made up because everything was so new, and it was just being forged.
Well, you had
and
to
now
be able to do a lot of things. I mean, you had to be able to sing, you had to dance a little bit, you had to. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you had to do. Now, I want to hear the story about how Bob Braun chose you to sub for him when he went on vacation.
That's exactly right. I was working down in Lexington, and a fellow named Bill Erb, who was the program director
doing radio, the mornings?
It was a live radio show from McAlpin's Tea Room. It had 100 ladies that came to visit every day, and it had a live band. It would be the Hometowners with Kenny Price for 3 or 4 days, and then it would be the Cliff Lash Band would be there for a day, and all the singers would come over, Colleen Sharp and Marion Spellman and Bonnie Lou and Ruby Wright, and Bob it was a huge hit. I mean, it had great numbers and was sold out, and it was wonderful, except that it was an old-fashioned kind of radio program. But it stayed on, and Bob was about to move over to be Ruth Lyons' heir apparent, and so he wasn't going to have time to do this, so they went looking for somebody to do his radio show, basically, here on WLW, the nation station. And so Bill Erb, the program director, came to Lexington, and after a long story, I ended up coming up here. But Bob had the approval. Bob Braun could say, get him out of here, and I would have been gone. And he could have said that at any stage, certainly in the first year or two that I was there.
That's like Burbank.
You talk about being
that.
The hottest.
Burbank does that with you now.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, how come you're still? How come you're still here?
No, he won't let me on.
I see. All right.
He was hot.
Whoa! You bet he was. You bet it was. I mean, he was the guy, and so he came on, and and instead of saying get him out of here, he said, I like him. Let him work, and he helped. He was supportive. He was terrific. He was the reason I ended up at WLW. No question about that.
But then he went on. They canceled his show, and he went out to L.A. And see, I'm still kind of scratching my head because I think that there is a place for Bob Braun, and obviously there is at SAI now, and his numbers are great. And,
sure,
and
he's
people
doing
in this town just love him. He's one of the most credible people in the media. I mean, and one of the most recognized people.
Oh, boy, is he ever.
I'd like to see you back on the air somehow here in Cincinnati. Listen, what is it that you want to do, and I'll make a phone call after the show.
Right. I want to do what I'm doing right now. I have the best job in the history of the world, folks. I get to watch movies for a living.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that.
Yes.
Now, and I know I say your first love would be news. At least that's how you built your career. Are you really?
Sure.
Yeah. So you don't miss that at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
Not even a bit.
So you watch it, but this show is, and you have this rich bag of experiences from when you were a kid, of being out there with Rosie and meeting these people and having brushes with them and running into, and you bring those into play on the program.
I do, and that's easy, and that's a piece of cake. Actually, the truth of the matter, anybody in the world could do the job I'm doing now. It's just that I don't want them to know it. Could we keep this secret? Anybody could do this.
See, I don't agree with that, because you bring a presence to the camera like I've never seen. I mean, there's only one other person who I think does.
Don't suck up now.
No, what's the reason?
Would you shut up, David?
Listen,
would you let this man talk?
There's only one other person who really has the same kind of style that you have, and it's Bill Curtis.
Oh,
Bill Curtis. You two are my
Chicago.
favorite TV anchors. This is above and beyond. Jennings, broke on. Rather's not really that
I'll tell you,
charismatic.
I tell you, Curtis is very good, and I appreciate being named and mentioned the same breath. At any rate, this job is great. I get to watch movies, and I used to, when I was going to St. X High, when it was still downtown, I made a parking lot out of St. X High. I did. It's because as soon as I left, they tore it down.
That year, 1960.
Now a parking lot. I understand some friends have had an actual reunion in that parking lot. I'm going to go to the next one. At any rate, I used to skip school and go to the Old Times Theater and look at these double features, and now I get to see them again and talk about them. It's great.
Oh, I think I would. When I heard that you took that job, and it's been 8 or 9, 6, 7 months now, I guess.
It's been a year and 2 months.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, David.
See,
that's all right.
I'll have to amend my biography of you.
Where's your fact checker?
But at any rate, I'm reminded of the time when young George and I were growing up, and we shouldn't have, but we were just kids. We didn't know any better, and we held up that Ameristop in Robertson County, and boy, were you sore when you showed up at the Mount Olivet Sheriff's Department.
I wasn't sore at all, so long as you gave me the money. I kept it quiet until now, and now you're blowing it up.
I know, but it's a catharsis for me.
I mean, $7.89 in cash kept me quiet all this time. And now you go and blow it. What's it? I know. Now you're gonna try to get George for some money on this one, huh?
No, no way.
This will help his credibility out in California.
You know, it's funny. I've watched, and it probably will.
Inquire all over the place now.
I had a piece, and if I hadn't gotten it, you would have, because you sent me a note after. And there was one of these supermarket tabloids.
It was amazing.
It was really hilarious. And this was maybe, ER hunk. In the cover blurb, it's a little box on the ER hunk leads shocking life, or something.
You didn't like that. You didn't like them sniffing around Augusta at all,
No.
did you? Because
I don't think
you
you would have minded if they would have presented an undistorted picture of his rather bucolic boyhood,
which is precisely what they inadvertently had to do.
They actually did.
As you pointed out.
Yeah.
They were trying to nail him. And instead, all they had was his high school picture.
We got nothing on it. We'll make it up.
No, they had photos of him in, I forget, in a class play. And there's a photo of him helping a little old lady across the street. There was a photo of him in a paper drive.
There's the Cub Scout uniform.
Another photo of him bringing a kitten out of a burning building, And the whole text of the article was this shocking past and how he had all these girlfriends. And here was this one woman, she's a woman now, but one of his classmates would line up. She had acted as his procurer for dates, and she was just someone that knew George, so girls would say, "Hey, and it was just hilarious. I love that kind of journalism.
Oh yeah, and they made a big deal out of the hayride too.
Yeah. What was it? The 4-H hayride.
That's right. It was really funny, but it does steam us all a little bit down. Augusta's a little town, and we've had to grow up in a big hurry because all of a sudden we've got two at a time. We've got Current Affair and some kind of an edition. I never remember the name of that dumb show. And these people are wandering around trying to get people to lie.
You never sold the house in Augusta.
The shows have been out. They've been going around knocking on doors.
Oh yes, 3 times, 3 of them so far, plus the Globe and the Dubba and the whatever.
Now, pardon me, but didn't a former Channel 12 alum end up at one of those programs?
I drove 3 alums to Current Affair. I don't know how I did that.
Chickarone was one of them. John Johnson.
John Johnson and Steve did the weekend. Steve Langford. Stephen Langford did the weekend one. So I had 3 graduates from our newsroom on Current Affair. And
the shows pay well. They just like the tabloids.
But you talk about Augusta now. You never sold that house.
Oh, no.
When you went to L.A.
Oh no, that's always been home. That's it. That's home. In this racket, you get a center of gravity and you leave it alone. And then if you get a job, great. You go to Salt Lake City and do that. But that can't be home.
Do you just kind of rent a place out there?
Sure. Or if it's a great market, which it has never been, then you buy one and sell it.
How'd your employer feel about that in L.A. when you didn't permanently move out there? That maybe
nobody in Los Angeles has ever permanently moved to Los Angeles. There are people who have been there 4 generations who are still renting. This is a rootless society. Palm trees have the shortest roots.
Yeah, you can just pick them up.
Just pick them up.
That's right. They're just bulbs.
That's the perfect symbol, it seems to me, for Southern California generally, because it's a very rootless, very beautiful, very interesting, in many ways superficial society, and nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts very long. Nothing lasts a week. It's just a very interesting place.
Things last much less time there, I think.
Really, big, quick cycles. Yep. Quick cycles, I think.
11:20, Backyard BBQ, David Wecker and Nick Clooney. A couple of post-columnists, and it's great to have both of you here. And David, this is your last show.
And that meat's sizzling. It's my what?
The radar forecast says 88 today, 70 tonight, and a slight chance of rain tomorrow, 85. It's 82 now at 700 WLW.
When something happens in the O.J. Simpson trial, you'll hear about it with news updates every 30 minutes from News Radio 700 WLW.
Hustler magazine publisher Larry Flint and the company he heads have been found guilty of pandering obscenity and engaging in organized crime. Eyewitness 12's Kyle Hill has been covering that story since the grand jury indicted the magazine and its officers last summer. And tonight, he brings the verdict.
Thank you, Nick.
And that was it. I cut it off after that, Nick. I just wanted to hear you.
What's the verdict? What's the verdict?
See, I was going through the tapes, and I was running out of time, and I just wanted to grab whatever I could grab, but I just wanted to show that you were there as part of the news establishment when the Larry Flint story was finally settled. And Kyle Hill, who's with Cincinnati Bell now.
Well, you know, I'm reminded of the time when George and I were kids, and we were out behind the barn.
Here he is, George and I were kids. Here he goes
again. And you found
again.
us reading. We were smoking rolled-up corn silk cigarettes.
Yes, and you stole my magazines.
And we were reading your Hustlers, and boy, were you sore.
Boy, was I mad, and so was Larry.
I'll never forget that.
Didn't pay for them. You stole those magazines. Shame on you.
Nick Clooney, David Wecker, Matt Reis, the Backyard BBQ. Let's fire up the grill in there, Chuck. Get those coals hot here. We're hot this morning. David, it's good to see you again. You're so impressive we were able to get Nick Clooney to the show.
Well, then why aren't you saying something about it, for crying out loud? You're just sitting there. You got your
don't toss it to me.
You got your T-shirt on there saying "Come back to Orlando." Where do you get these things, for crying out loud?
It says I was stupid.
Yes.
And it's not true. And
thank you.
I don't dress well. And
which one of the stupids are you talking about here?
No, I don't mean that.
No,
it's
of course.
Generic T-shirt and what?
Right.
But don't toss it to me. Toss it back to me. I'm a little.
Nick, take it.
You bet. Ladies and gentlemen, very nice to have you here on WLW, the nation's station, 700 Clear Channel, 50,000-watt voice of the Middle West. And in just a moment, it's the Good Morning Show featuring Colleen Sharp. Yes.
And it really was. And it is still, you know, what I find, I drive through McDonald's, the drive-through window at Wendy's, and people say, hey, you're that, and I'll order a biggie fry and a big bacon classic, and they say, hey, you're that.
Did you just get a free one? Did you? Is that what you just did there?
No, what happened.
Yeah, right.
No, I did.
Sure.
Plug-ola. That's back in your day.
Plug-ola. Listen to this. It's working yet.
And the person
Here's news. Real news.
Now we got it.
What?
Lucky
Yes.
strike.
Write it down there. Means fine tobacco.
One of the great things about Cincinnati, no doubt,
Yes.
are people who listen to 700 WLW.
No, that's great.
It's excitement plus.
Excitement plus,
That's right. Well, your excitement and David is plus. I guess.
Right. But at any rate, I'll order the biggie fry and the big bacon classic.
You're going to go on with this, aren't you? You're going to go on. You're not going to stop.
I insist. Ellipses. And the guy will say, hey, aren't you that Bill Wecker I hear on WLW? And I'll say, yes, I am.
Ain't fame wonderful?
And I'll drive through, and the people will be there.
Whatever.
Yeah. Well,
Whatever.
Nick's
Blah,
been
blah,
telling
blah.
his stories.
That's
You
right.
got ketchup with that?
And it was.
No more.
But at any rate, and so there is still, this is a big, powerful station. But when you were, it was the nation's, station, and I don't know what kind of ripples would spin off from
Pete
that.
Grant was still there when I went there. Pete greeted me. He was still doing the news, and the young kid was Gene Randall, who had just come on, and he was
CNN now.
The guy's on CNN now, and he's and obviously both of them wonderful. And Pete,
Tell me about Peter Grant. Peter Grant.
I cannot. He is Melvin McGinn was his real name. He was from Missouri. He came to our town as an announcer first, I think, about 1932, and immediately had this astounding presence. You were talking about presence. He was an astounding presence on the air, and he started doing, among other things, news, as you know, was not necessarily a big chunk of radio at that time. That CBS started moving in that direction in the 30s. But news was incidental. You were news readers in those days, and that's what Pete was.
What year are we talking about?
33, 34,
Wow.
35. And then Pete, I talked to Pete about this many times because I would just, I was a big admirer because he was one of my heroes. The Ed Murrows and the Pete Grants of the world were the ones I listened to. And Pete had this just absolutely magnificent presence and deep understanding of the movement, the sub-movement of news. He really understood those things. And he did a heck of a job for us. Then he went off to the Army. He came back and was still, even with television, he came on and became just very, very hot. He did the three-city final on radio, which was Columbus and Dayton and Cincinnati, and he then did his television.
It was all patterned after newspaper, radio news.
Of course it was.
The three-city final. And now with the three-city final.
Sure, where'd we get headlines, We're still saying it, aren't we?
Yeah, that's right.
Headlines, yeah, it's
And
always
the news would be, it was almost, there was a window on, wasn't it Elm Street? where people could come by and watch the news being
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. From what they called Comex, wasn't it? I believe they called that Comex, the Comex building right across from Crosby Square.
What is it? I think it's Legal Aid now, or some sort of a county building, but it's right across from where WLWT is now.
Well, hold that thought. We've got to do the news.
What?
We've got the morning
You're
final
always
with Kevin
interrupting.
Christopher.
Where's Pete Grant? When you need
Grant.
Right.
Where's Pete Grant?
Well,
We have Kevin Christopher. How about
good.
that? All right. Kevin
Yeah,
Christopher.
Kevin's great.
On Saturday midday, the Backyard BBQ 700 WLW. What is this in the Cincinnati Post the other day? We have a quote here from Nick Clooney. This is and this is about George, the 13-year overnight success.
Yes.
Says, perhaps a lesson he can teach us is never to give up on your dream, no matter who tries to discourage you, including your father.
You bet I did. You bet I did.
You gotta
I was
have that
the one.
vision.
Listen, he did. He was, and you know that very well. You were out there and visited him, David, and you did I thought, a really good piece on where you went out around in his convertible with him. We say, Sam, how you going?
What's he driving? A
Come on
vet?
in, kid.
Driving a vet. What kind of a car does George have?
George has the old 1959 Corvette that I had, that I bought in 1959 to impress a little girl named Nina Warren. And we got married 3 months later and spent 5 years paying that sucker off.
You know, that's one thing about
that was not a midlife crisis situation. You were just trying to land the lady at that time. Now, see, this is significant.
No, it is significant, and that's another thing about the Clooneys that I think you need to know. You guys know how to take care of a car, and I don't mean personally, but you know to get the oil changed. If you get the oil changed,
goes forever.
Right.
Goes forever.
And all your cars
people
are
don't want you to know
antiques,
that.
aren't they?
People don't want you to know that. We're driving a big old car now that is, this one's our newest car. It's a 1990 car. It's got 215,000 miles on it. It's fine. We had the...
What is it, a Cadillac?
No, it's like a Chevy. It's
I heard you had a Caddy, though, didn't you?
Well, we also... Well, the one I'm talking about is Chrysler.
That's what it was. Was a New Yorker or Newport or whatever it is?
And George was the recipient of one of our 100,000-mile cars that he took on out to California. We just drive them till they fall apart. That's the only way you get the money out of cars.
He has this wonderful self-deprecating spirit about him. It's like a Cary Grant style, you know? I mean, he is. He's kind of the new Cary Grant.
Well, I'll tell you,
I thought Tom Hanks was supposed to be the new Cary.
No,
whatever.
No, George is the new Tom Hanks. That's right. I knew it was something like that. Wait a minute. No, you know what he does. I called him I was talking to him the other day, and I was pretty impressed with the show. Even I'm impressed with the show. And so I'm saying to George, I said, George, you know what I like about it is that when you make everybody else better. When Anthony's with you, he's better. When Sherry's with you, she's better. And he said, Pop, did you ever stop and think that maybe I just make them look good because I'm such a bad actor?
I saw him on Saturday Night Live. He's doing the liver transplant.
He was
the guy sitting in the seat, and the blood squirting all over him. And
he was the only.
Just take it easy there. I almost got it.
He was the only good part of that show.
Well, you know that's true.
I didn't see the rest. That was the only part I saw.
It's a bad season. I mean, they have some good people. They got that Chris Elliott, but
that's right. I thought that and the thing that George did with Jay Leno's imitation.
I love the Leno.
That was
in the cab.
That. Yeah, I thought that was good. But you're right. The rest of it was pretty weak. Anyway,
did George feel that way?
No. I don't know. I would never. I didn't ask him. He was so excited about being on Saturday Night Live. He grew up with it.
All right, now tell me about Rosemary. How does she feel now with this nomination? This is really.
I can't tell you. I was excited. She sounded like a teenager. I was the one that told her. I woke her up. And
how'd you hear about it? It was
a friend of mine named Jerry Hellard used to be with ABC News. He's on the Emmy committee. And he called me at about 6:30 to tell me about George, 6:30 my time, tell me about George. And then he called me back about 15 minutes later, and he said, and listen to this, and he told me about Rosemary. And so George, of course, was up and already knew about this. Rosemary didn't even know she was in the hunt. She didn't even know she was one of the ones. And so I called her to wake her up. And the first thing I said was, did you hear about George? I said, no, I didn't hear about George. I said, George just got it. She said, oh, great, way to go, George, great, that's good. I said, did you hear about you? Long silence. What about me? You're nominated too. I guess there. She says, I'm too nervous. I've got to sit down. I think I'm having a heart attack.
I saw that show. She played the Alzheimer's patient. That was it was striking.
She's always been a good actress, and almost nobody knew that. And now they do, which is great.
Nick Clooney, David Wecker, now more than ever.
Less than ever.
What does now more than ever mean? You see it at the end of the NBC. Now more than it could ever be, now more than it was yesterday. At this moment in time, which has just passed, It was better than it ever was, and
Well, no,
better
there
ever
was more,
would be.
not better, not
Say
now
that.
better than ever. You got to have a thing in TV.
Right. They sort of started in movies. You know, they always said now more than ever. That's we always had that kind of a thing, and they probably
I
did
like
it
the
in
way he
Boston.
says that. The
And they-
Backyard Barbecue.
Yeah.
Now more than ever.
That's
David
right.
Wecker.
I
like
think
that.
it's
I do too.
good. Let's do it.
All
And
right.
CBS has, what are they? Have you seen Your Country Today?
No, I didn't.
As opposed to yesterday and whatever.
Remember what Walter Cronkite used to say, and that's the way it is.
And that was a good one, I think.
I like that.
And
How
then-
about Courage? Courage.
Courage.
That was the worst. That was the worst. Mine was the longest.
Was that
Mine
after
the
For
longest.
those
Mine
you see and those you don't?
Yeah,
Those
that goes too far. That was too long. That was too long.
I like that.
like the
Yeah,
idea.
see,
I like the idea, and I wanted to do that.
It's 9 words.
That's too long. You know,
Is it?
that's I think so. Yeah, you need it, and that's the way it is fine. You know, you're
Yeah,
out.
that was quick.
What's your alt tagline here? What do you got? What's your
Well,
tagline?
we kind of rip off. We do a lot of now more than ever.
Yes, that's good.
We
Whatever.
know a great idea when we steal. Or whenever we hear. Whatever.
And if you can get a hand free, listen to us.
It's 11:41, 700 WLW.
That's not bad.
And this is the hottest spot in town, the Backyard BBQ on 700 WLW.
Hi, this is Reds manager Davey Johnson. Join me and Chris Collinsworth for Touching Base, weekdays at 7:25 a.m. on 700 WLW.
You in the sunshine, yeah. You are the reason we do what we do. You are the music we play. We do it for you on WLW.
1146, 700 WLW. Nick Clooney, David Wecker on the Backyard Barbecue. Hi, this is Matt Reis at about 1:45 noon, and we're talking about some of the articles that have been written about George. Now, we didn't want to make this a whole show about George, but you're so proud of him.
that's what you're
Everybody wants
doing.
to know about
That's
it. That's
okay.
what's happening.
That's
and
exactly
I
what you did. Yeah,
apologize.
sure you did. Yeah, right.
Everybody's trying to get a
Subject.
piece of
That's
George.
right.
Let's make the subject the media.
All
in
right,
that
let's
regard.
talk about the media. And some of the articles have been written about George, all right? Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Randall, you're on 700 WLW. Let's go to the phones quickly.
I'm kind of sort of off the subject of George, if you will.
Yay.
I'm a retired police officer. I don't think where from is important, but all I wanted to do, and I've wanted to do this for years, is compliment Nick on his demeanor when the days when he was a reporter.
Randall, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that.
Well, I've thought someday I'm going to bump into Nick and be able to tell him that personally, but
Well, why?
it never happens.
And I don't mean to inject here, but why is that you? I mean, what sort of reporter and maybe other journalists who might be listening might?
Well, over the years, as a police officer, I've had a difference of opinion a couple of times with some reporters. And I remember one specific incident, and there were several, but one, I was at a homicide scene. I happened to be a lieutenant at the time, and there was a lot going on at the time, obviously. We had priorities on our minds. And I saw Mr. Clooney in the area, and he would stand back and sort of just look and see what was going on. And when I walked out past a cruiser one time, he said, Lieutenant, when you have a minute, I really would appreciate being able to talk to you. That was the way he approached it, and that was appreciated.
You know, everybody I've talked to about you, Nick, says the same thing. I mean, I never hear a bad or negative, and that's quite a tribute to you.
For heaven's sake, don't call Nina.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
Well, of course, you live with a person. It's
Randall, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll tell you something. That's you got the toughest racket in the world. And
Well, I did have. Let's put it that way.
Okay, well, you sure did. And I have complete respect for your choice of careers, and I wish you well.
Well, that was a good word you just used, and that's what I wanted to say is how much I respected how you handled yourself as a reporter.
Thank you very much.
Randall, thanks for the call.
Thank you, Nick.
You know, there are a lot of journalists who think, and I don't know if this is like the post-Watergate era, who think they have, there is the public right to know, but they hide behind that shield, or at least use that as some sort of a battering ram to excuse all sorts of bad manners.
Well, we were talking during the break about these articles about George, and GQ was totally inaccurate. They didn't even have the name of the town correct.
There were about 7 or 8 factual errors in that article. There were about 3 or 4 in another national magazine, the name of which I can't remember. But let me tell you this: there was one magazine called Us, and I will remember that one because it got things right. They put a good reporter on the story and did an excellent job of telling the story. So I'm going to remember the ones that did it right and try to boost them.
Did you ever have to correct a story on the air?
Oh yeah.
Tell me about it. What was the one that hurt the most?
Well, let me see now. I don't remember us really. Oh yes, I do. Boy, I almost blocked this one out. I made an absolutely terrible error. What had happened was the initial report we got was a young woman had been raped and murdered, and her name, of course, was sent over the wire at that point. And we put the story together, and I guess we were pretty close to deadline, and I put the story on the air, and we read it. The fact of the matter, she had been raped but not murdered. She was still alive and around, and I had just, and we never in those days, and
essentially you killed her on the air.
Here's exactly, not only that, I was giving her name as a rape victim, which I did not do either, and I didn't do either
generally
one of those.
That's not done.
Not at all, unless there's some other mitigating circumstance for me. We didn't identify a rape victim.
Sure. Why did you that time?
Because she was dead. Once she's dead, it makes then that doesn't make any difference. But if you're still trying to live in whatever town you're living in, it's nobody's business that you've been raped unless there's some mitigating reason for doing it. So I had done 2 things to her. I had told some friends of hers that she was dead when she wasn't, and I had, and simply because I did not follow up. There was a follow-up story on the wire, and I didn't make the calls. I was rushed for time and just pulled off the wire and didn't. You can't do that. You cannot do that. You always have to double check everything. And I didn't call the operative people to get to double check my story. I just pulled it off the wire.
Here's something I've wondered about. You were, I think, the first person to suggest to Jerry Springer that he maybe do commentaries. You talked to him about that.
Actually, to do news. I suggested to him that I thought it would be a great idea for him to do news. I'd heard him on EBN, doing radio commentaries, and I thought he was very good. Yeah. And then I talked to him. I said, if this thing with the governor doesn't work out, how about doing news? And we talked. And he said, well, how would you do that? And I said, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to do commentary? You want to be a reporter? You want to be an anchor? He said, well, I want to be an anchor eventually. I said, okay, fine. Well, I would start you out as a reporter, as a people reporter. I'd put you on the street for a year. Then I would put you on one of the newscasts if you and kind of inject you into it. And then and he said, well, could I continue to do the commentaries? And I said, not if you're anchoring. I said, you can do it if you're not anchoring. But in my view was you couldn't do both. Yeah. Well, he quite properly went to both other stations then, since we had talked about this idea, and he went to both other stations. And Channel 5 said, sure, you can do the commentary and anchor at the same time. So that's where he went, and it was fine. It's great. I thought he did a heck of a job.
When you see a show now, though, I mean, and you read about it,
the show's terrible.
But I get this feeling he's kind of laughing to the bank, and that's what I resent about it.
Well, I don't know about that because I haven't talked to him.
From what I read, it's like there is an excuse for why we do it. I mean, people want to see it, so therefore we give it to him.
Well, my guess is he's surviving.
Yes, Jerry Springer is a very talented guy who could do all kinds of different things, and he sees this is. I think my sense is that he sees this as the richest way to go. When he left for Chicago, I did a long, protracted interview with him, and at which point, and he told other people that, listen, we're not going to do that Chippendales thing. We're going to take the high road.
Yeah, and he meant that, I'm sure.
I don't doubt it. Yeah.
But he's capable of so much more.
Very smart guy.
The insight, the political insight that he would bring to an interview. I mean, it's just disappointing.
Well, he has a billboard on Times Square. And,
is that right?
You bet. And this is, and he is at a certain level successful. I don't think that it's the kind of thing he'll want to tell his kids he did for a living, But that's
maybe
that's
it's
something
just a stage. Yeah.
Yeah. Could be. Well, I must tell you this: he's been a great friend to me, and I'm a great admirer of his talent. I really am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's no question. He's a very talented guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. David, your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you do this to me, Matt, when you whip around the lazy Susan like that, and like the ketchup comes flying at me, I don't have a whole lot of thoughts.
I know there was one thing that I wanted to ask you, and this is.
Are you asking David? Is this David? Are we asking David?
It's to Nick.
Are we talking to me?
It's to Nick Clooney.
Right. Okay.
But you came back, and the circumstances. Do you think you caught on fire when you came back from L.A.? Do you think the town was unforgiving? Do you think it was? What were the circumstances?
Yeah.
I mean, I never did understand how it is you're not still doing news on TV. It was a choice of yours, or was it the people's choice, or what is it?
It was a choice of mine. I had 3 years left on my contract when I left. It was, they were, nobody ever at Channel 12, not one person ever asked me to leave. Not anybody. That wasn't even brought up. That was never even suggested at any meeting. That was totally my decision. I believed that I had lost the confidence of the management, and I felt also that I might have lost a little edge. You know, I thought I might have lost a little something there. ABC had gone in the down the drain, and we had no lead-ins anymore, and so our numbers had gone down. And besides which, there were two wonderful things going on at the other stations. Jerry was doing very well over at the other at Channel 5, and
Menarson, wasn't it then?
Pat Menarson did that magnificent job on that story about the Angel of Death, and all three of those things combined, we were still pretty strong number two at the time that I left, and I felt that it was time for me to get out and give Rob and all the others a chance. I was becoming the focus. John Kieswetter and others, you and others, were writing about me instead of writing about the news.
Commentaries from David Wecker.
They were. I was the focus, and I thought I needed to get out of the way and give these young people a chance to become whatever they were going to become.
Who impresses you the most on local TV now?
I'm going to stay completely away from that. I am not going to answer that question. I watch occasionally all three newscasts, but and I know all those people very well, and let me tell you what's good about all this.
If you're trying to dig up dirt on me, buddy.
Let me tell you what's good about this. What's good is all three stations. One might be doing a better job in lining up the stories. All three stations doing an honest job right now, and that's not true in every state in the United States. We haven't got anybody doing what's happening in Miami, what's happening in Los Angeles, and what's happening in some of the major cities in this. That's not happening here. These folks are doing an honest job trying to get the news out every day, and I salute them. And I'm not going to say I like one better than the other. I don't.
Let me talk to you about this liberal conservative bias that you have. I'm a liberal and a conservative.
Isn't ever? I think you just answered your own question, didn't you?
Do you believe that exists? Do you think there's a liberal bias in the media as a whole?
Oh, good Lord, no. You haven't got time. If you had time to sit down and think about, well, I'm going to skew this story toward George McGovern, you haven't got time. I mean, you've been in those newsrooms. You're in a newsroom. You're tripping to try to get the bloody thing on the air. There isn't any time. I remember one time a lady called me and said that I was obviously she was a liberal lady, and said I was obviously had a fascist bias. And she said, because every time you say, I believe it was Betty Friedan's name, Betty Friedan was big in the news, every time you say her name, your right eyebrow raises. And I said, excuse me, ma'am, I didn't know that, and I certainly will watch my eyebrows from now on, but why would that mean? She said, didn't you hear what I said? Your right eyebrow.
Oh, not your left.
Well, your eyebrows are legendary, Nick, and so are George's. And
Lloyd's of London, they're insured with them.
I think we all bring something to the set, don't we? People are bringing something to that radio right now when they're riding around. I mean, you bring your own baggage.
See, and I would maybe to that extent disagree with you that I don't think overall that there's a conspiracy that there's one giant brain that controls the media, but I think individuals do bring biases to stories.
I think you can bring the biases. I think it is much less likely in broadcast, and I'll tell you why. Because you don't get to the third paragraph or the fourth paragraph or the fifth paragraph where that bias is more likely to show up.
Right.
All we're doing, we're a headline service still to for the most part.
Yeah, the television news is for people who don't have time for the less, what am I saying, the less full coverage of, what is it, USA Today? I forget what the expression is. Boy, did I bung.
Whatever.
Blah, blah.
You know the terrible part? I think I understood him.
I know you did, because you've seen the cliche, probably.
Okay, out of here.
So what's ahead for you, Nick? We're going to have to close the show off here, but what projects are you involved in?
Okay, right now I've just written a special for Rosemary, which is going to go on A&E in November. It's an hour and a half, and it's a celebration of her 50th year in television. I just finished writing it. It took me a week. It is the hardest bloody work I've done in forever. I will continue to write, as David can tell you, I'll continue to write 3 columns a week for the Post, and let me tell you, that is hard work.
Yeah, it is. It's a monster.
Incidentally, I am syndicated. It also appears in the Maysville Ledger Independent.
Yes. Well, I'm not syndicated. I'm going to have to talk to Canoe.
That's exactly right. I am, and I feel good about that. I want you to.
It's God's country down there, dude.
Well, you're not kidding.
It is.
And I'm still obviously working for AMC, and they're sending me all over the country for this thing. And I am, I guess, busier than I have ever. I think I'm a little busier than I've ever been.
Well, you're on tomorrow on AMC. What time?
Yeah, I'm on every day. I'm here in.
I only see it on Sundays, so I guess that's what I thought.
Yeah, Saturday and I'm 24. I'm on 7 days a week, and I'm on from about 1 till about 8. And then Bob Dorian, who's been there for 10 years and is absolutely terrific at this stuff, he takes it from 8 until 1 in the morning.
Do you write your copy for AMC?
I rewrite it. They have a wonderful staff of researchers, and they do all the stuff, and they block me a script out, and they do the same thing with Bob Dorian. They send us scripts. Then I'll get all those books I've gathered all these years, or call people that I know.
Are you using a teleprompter when you're doing that? I mean, or are you?
Almost always. About 85 to 90% of the time, I do write it and put it on prompter. Mm-hmm. The other 15% of the time, it's stuff that I've just gotten and want to ad-lib. Yeah.
Nick, I can't say.
You can't say thank you because you didn't enjoy it.
No, I really got to tell you, it was great having you up here.
I had a good time. Do you remember the first time we met?
It was at Don North's TV reporting class.
That's exactly what it was. At Xavier.
At Xavier University, and I was so keyed up that he was coming to speak at this class. And in fact, I was trying to find the notes from it last night, and I couldn't find it. I had it.
Were you as much of an apple polisher then as you are now?
Ayana.
It was great. Had a good time. Take care, you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming
Nick
by.
Clooney.
You bet. See you.
And the Backyard Barbecue continues after the news with Paul Harvey, Kevin Christopher, and our nightmare scenario. Dedicated to you, Nick Clooney. All right. Good to see you again. Thank you very much. 12 noon in Cincinnati, the home of the Reds, Sports Radio 700 WLW.
We take you now to Cincinnati. An evening at Crosley Square.